it is a challenge, but at the same time, I've had some great opportunities and roles all along. So
do you like Dwight?
But listen,
do you like Dwight?
I do very much.
That's
like
good.
Dwight. And my son,
I like hearing that.
My son is 17, and he only got into The Office when he was about 16. And he put it off for a long time.
Yeah.
And I always used to kind of give him shit and be like, why don't you watch The Office? All your friends watch The Office. And he's like, finally he broke down. He's like, Dada, I want you to be my dad. I don't want you to be Dwight. And that was very sweet.
That is very sweet.
Very sweet. But, so occasionally he'll be watching an episode and I'll come in and see some parts of it. I'm like, oh, that's good. It's good. It's so weird and funny and warped and true at the same time. Like,
right.
I'm very proud of the role and what we all did with that show.
So good. Can we talk for a minute, just for any listeners who hasn't heard me tell this story, of how I almost ruined your career?
Yeah. Please tell them the story.
I almost ruined your career.
Close. Yeah.
So
you almost ruined Steve's.
And almost ruined Steve's. And yet, not really. Well, it could have, but it was, So we became familiar with each other through Rob Zombie and House of a Thousand Corpses and Jen Jostin. And that's where we kind of were all mutual friends. And when I started casting this pilot that they came and got me off of Conan, and they're like, do you have an idea for TV? I'm like, yeah, kind of. And I had this role, and I asked Rainn to come in to read for it. Me and Greg Malins were making this show, and we loved you so much. And Jen's like, you've got to check out Rainn. And it was like, oh, that finally we found the guy that can play this character. And we brought you in to test for network, which is the final round. And it didn't get it. And then we begged them and fought with them to bring you back a second time. Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
And we brought you back a second time.
Andy Ackerman was directing.
Right,
yep.
Right. And for whatever reason, whoever was making the decisions didn't go for it. At the same time, so we were crestfallen. We're just like, I can't believe we don't get to use Rainn. And then a new president comes into the company. And after we shot the pilot without you. And they're starting to make The Office in the background. And they came to us and said, before The Office had launched or was even put together, we have this guy in a deal, Steve Carell. We want the new president of the network, Kevin Riley, came in and said, we saw your pilot. We had already shot it. We like it. He hated it. And he's like, but what if we put Steve Carell in it? We have a deal with him. He's funny. He'll make your show. And we were like, Steve's the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Let's put Steve in it. And we put Steve Carell. All of a sudden, he was like my boss. It was like he was doing The Office. It was like he was auditioning for The Office on our show.
But it was much broader. I remember him on that show.
Much broader. Yeah.
Did he have an accent on the show or something? Was he like? No. I remember him doing some very like.
Yeah. I don't remember. And so I tried to get you. And then they put Steve on us, but we were like, okay, let's take Steve because he's amazing. And the head of the network just did not like our show. And they start putting together The Office. And behind the scenes, they're taking Steve and they're going to put him in The Office. And they saw him running our show as the boss, which I didn't even want. I was all of a sudden, I was working in an office, which wasn't what our show was about at all. But we were just trying to keep it afloat and make this new president happy.
Yeah.
And while we were filming, they gave Steve the lead in The Office. And we're like, huh.
What does that mean for us?
What does that mean for our show?
Yeah.
And it all worked out just fine, but it was like, it really is kind of funny that I wanted you so badly, and then we had Steve, and then you guys went off into outer space.
And then, yeah.
And thank God, because it's such a beloved show, even by myself, and the culture, it's like that. If you ever feel like things are happening for a reason, it's like we all needed that show. We all really wanted that show. We were figuring shit out.
So it's very generous of you, Tom. You could be very jaded and bitter about it. Oh, those fuckers stole Steve from
Yeah. No, even when it was happening, I was like,
I remember I did not audition very well for your show. I was nervous and I couldn't. It took me the longest time. It was a multi-camera sitcom,
right?
And I didn't understand how to do that,
right?
Like if we're having this conversation right now, but then there's an audience watching, and
you're leaning into it.
You kind of want to bring it up for the audience, but then you lose sight of like the scene here. It's a weird style, you know?
It is, yeah, for sure.
I was more suited to The Office, where it's like we forget the cameras are there and we're just kind of in the scene.
Yeah.
So I struggled with the also the telling of jokes. And I love multi-camera sitcoms. So it was really fun for me because the last couple of years I did this recurring character on Mom with Alice and Janney, and that was so I got to kind of like work on what it's like doing a.
How did you like it?
It was great.
Yeah.
It took some getting used to. You know, a real audience laughing and trying to get through a whole scene. You know, because you're performing the scene like in the theater for an audience. It's tricky.
It's time for Breaking Bread with Papa. Hey!